Namaste. Hi, my name is Anna Pilar, and I'm going to talk just a little bit more about the Vedas, the important tomes of literature, which the yoga has sort of built itself and come from. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. So the Vedas, Veda means to know. So the root word of the word Veda is Ved, and it means to know or to see, right? And so it is these literature. There's 4 books, and they're very old. And I'll go into that just a little bit more. But these are not written. They were never written down originally. This is a culture that was a nomadic culture that moved across these great plains, and they you couldn't carry a whole lot of stuff. As anybody knows who has to move, the first thing that goes is all the heavy books, right? Like you're like, oh, I'll just give those away. So these this literature these tomes were remembered. Okay, they were composed, and it was a medic device that they would be chanted and sung, and so it wasn't ever written down until much later. And these were composed not necessarily in Sanskrit. This is composed of actual, what they call Old Vedic or Indic. Okay, so this is pre-Sanskrit. Sanskrit comes out of this idea of how to keep the connection to the Vedas, as the Sanskrit language is then created for that purpose. So you wouldn't lose the connection. If you think about that in a sort of a way in our modern world, is how different our English is compared to Shakespearean English, compared to Chaucer's Old English, right? So they wanted to have it's pretty easy to start to lose the ability to connect back to the previous language, the iteration of that language, without some sort of conscious awareness. And that's what they did by creating Sanskrit. Actually, Old Vedic and Indic is more closely related to, I believe it's called Avestan. It's an Iranian ancient language. So these are very, very old texts. So the idea is that the Vedas, okay, so the word Ved, which is to see or know, it becomes, in our language eventually it comes to verify, is a way, like, is directly related to the word Ved or Veda. And then also the Greek word oeda is to know. It also came directly from the Veda, right? This idea of that particular language, that root word. And it was considered, it's considered not of man, right? It's the idea is that these Vedas, they were downloaded by these seers, right? The rishis. It is what they call shruti, that which was heard. So this is not something that was, it was not history of man. It was not from memory. It is, it is Shruti, right? Shruti is what was heard. And there was 4 Vedas. The first one is the oldest, is the Rig Veda. And this is the oldest. It contains the creation myths. It creates the rites of passage. It has the stories in these creation myths of these gods like Indra and Agni and Soma, right? So these are sort of also the kind of what you would be using when you're doing the yagna, right? The fire ceremonies. The next one is the Yajura Veda. This is the mantras for the puja. This is the rituals, right? So there is 2 variants of the Yajura Veda. But again, this is all the ideas of the puja for the fire ceremonies. And then we have the Samaveda, and these are the songs. These are the music, the chants, right, that you would sing. And then the Atharva Veda. This is where we get the procedures, like for herbal medicine. So this is sort of where Ayurveda takes its root from, is this particular Veda. A lot of folk magic is here as well. These are procedures for daily life. So when we think about in Ayurveda, we have the Dinacharya, Abhyanga, we have these daily rituals. This is all found back in the Atharva Veda. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the idea of the Rig Veda just for a moment, because I find it to be one of the most fascinating ones. And this is, they rate this about, I think it was composed between 1800 to like 1000 BCE. So this is very, very, very old. And it's got 1028 hymns in it. So it's about 10 books, and it contains the whole vision of the cosmos. So it explains the origins, the order, the patterns of what we see and what we can't see. And it gives humans a place in the world and how to orient ourselves in the world. In this, there is this idea, this is where we first see the word yoga happen, is in the Rig Veda, but it is always connected with a different word. So in the Rig Veda, it's yoga kshema. Right, so yoga kshema, so kshema means harmony. So it means to engage, right? To engage, to align in harmony with the world around you. That was the whole point, right? Is that how do we create this harmonious relationship with the world around you? Because the world at that time was not a fun place to live in. If things would eat you, you could get a disease, a staph infection, whatever. It's like you could die very easy. They say it was like 3 days from starvation always, or 5 days from death. Like literally, like it was always like it's hard. And so how do you, the idea of then it was like, how do we then make ourselves harmonious with this world around us so that we can be successful? There's this idea of the Agni, of fire, being the very central point to this Veda, and it's, I believe, the first or second word in the entire Rig Veda is Agni, the word of fire. And that's because fire is, number one, is what keeps the things that eat you away at bay at night, right? But it's also the process in which you can nourish yourself. Through the fire, you can transform and cook, right, the food that will then give you strength. It was also a way for you to send messages, right? To transmutate your desires, your hopes to the gods above, right? That was the whole idea of this transaction. So it's basically, how do we make the world digestible is basically the idea of the Rig Veda. I am going to read a little passage. This is my favorite hymn, so please forgive me, I don't have it memorized. It's the hymn of creation, the Nasadya. It's hymn 10.29. And the summary is basically like the one becomes the many, okay? So the singularity turns into sort of an unfinished set of possibilities. And it's basically how the universe, a thing that turns like once, get uni, becomes a multiverse. So the more than two turns, it becomes diverse. So this is, there's 7 verses, okay, it's a poem. And this is my teacher, Dr. Douglas Brooks's translation. Here it says, "The non-existent did not exist, nor the existent at that time. There existed neither airy space nor heaven beyond. What moved back and forth? From where and in whose protection? Did water exist? Unfathomably deep. Death did not exist, nor deathlessness then. There existed no sign of day or night. That one breathed breathlessly by its own will. There existed nothing else beyond. Darkness existed hidden by darkness in the beginning, as this was a signless ocean. What existed as a thing into being, concealed by emptiness, that one was born by the power of heat. Then in the beginning, from thought there arose desire, which existed as the primal seed. Searching in their hearts through inspired thoughts, poets found the connection between existent and non-existent. Their cord was stretched across. Did something exist below it? Did something exist above? There existed placers of seed, and there existed greatness. There was independent will below and offering above. Who really knows? Who shall proclaim it? From where was it born? From where this creation? The gods? The gods are on this side of creation. So then, who does know from where it came to be? This creation from whence it came to be, if it was made or not. The overseer of this world in the furthest heavens surely knows. Or if he does not know? So the beautiful thing about this is that it makes its way into English pretty clearly, actually, considering how old it is, and it was in ancient Vedic or Old Indic, right, to begin with. And it's amazingly, fantastically, like, speculative. So it's filled with questions and wonder. And I love it because it reminds me of all of us, no matter how long, 5,000 years ago. It says, so we all were like, who are we? Where did we come from? And we're still asking the same question. So I hope this gives you just a little bit of insight into the mind of the old Vedic people who brought this idea and this concept of engagement, which became yoga in the Indian subcontinent. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you continue again to question and fill your mind with wonder. Namaste.